Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We're so excited to be here with you again. Guys, we just had the Winter Olympics a few weeks ago, and those who know me know that when it comes to watching the Olympics, I am an Olympics junkie. I will watch sports I have never watched before because it's the Olympics, because it's the best of the best. And when I was writing my book, The Success Factor, I interviewed a lot of Olympic champions, and one of the Olympians who I interviewed was Haley Skarupa, who won the gold medal in women's hockey. And I knew she was going to come on the show. So I said, I better watch the game so we can talk about it. And I watched the game and I emailed her right away. And I said, I got whiplash because it kept going so fast. And then a fight broke out and I didn't quite understand what was going on. So I got a whole play-by-play sheet. See, this is the good thing when you interview people, they can explain the whole game to you afterwards, which is fantastic. So we have an amazing, amazing guest today. We have Haley Skarupa, who won the gold medal in women's ice hockey, not this Olympics, the Olympics before. And she is one of the Olympic champions who is featured in the book, The Success Factor. She's also an incredible person with an incredible story. And Haley's going to tell us this whole story, how she got to play in the Olympics. It's actually a story that almost didn't happen. So you really want to stick around for this. As I'm introducing everyone, please in the live chat, tell us where you are watching us from. We love to know where in the world everyone's coming in from. And I have amazing people, as always, to help us out and help ask questions and bring other perspectives. We have the co-founder and the CEO of the Mentor Project and the 2022 Thinkers 50 Radar List winner, Dr. Debbie Heiser. Welcome, Debbie. And Janice Lintz, if you have an impossible problem that needs solving, an impossible change that needs to happen, there is only one person in the world that you call, and that is Janice Lintz, because she will get it done. She does not stop until it's done. Welcome, Janice. And of course, our favorite Jamaican bobsledder, our very good friend who knows how to live it up in the sun of Jamaica and in the cold of New York and on his bobsled, our good friend, Devin Harris. Hey, Devin. And Dr. Bruce Wiley, I don't even know what day today is, but he is a physician, a systems modeler, the funniest journalist you will ever find on Forbes and Psychology Today. He could tell us what his background is all about. Hey, Bruce.
Yes. Hey, Ruth. It's National Chicken Cordon Bleu Day.
I don't even know how to respond to that. But he is always up on the day of the special of the day, so to speak. And of course, our award-winning photographer and founder of Photo Wings, the nonprofit Photo Wings, Susie Katz. Hey, Susie. And of course, our Olympic champion who knows how to explain that whiplash to me, Haley Skarupa. Hey, Haley.
Hello.
Hey, and I, of course, am Dr. Ruth Gautian, the author of The Success Factor, and I interview extreme high achievers, people like the guests that we have on the show and some of the panelists as well. Well, all of the panelists are high achievers. Who are we kidding? So everyone join me in welcoming Haley. Haley, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm excited. Yes, we actually met through someone who actually used to work with the Mentor Project in the past, who introduced the two of us. And you were kind enough to tell me your story of how you actually got to the Olympics. And I've heard a lot of stories of how people got to your Olympics, but yours was different. Yours almost didn't happen.
Yeah, it was a pretty unconventional path for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's those bumps along the way, the ups and downs where you kind of really learn about yourself. And that's what really makes the result that much more rewarding. It's really all about the journey when you look back on it.
Wow. So when people ask I asked her where her medal is, and she had to go fumbling for it because hers was not on display. Because she kept telling me it's about the journey. It's about the journey. So, Haley, before you got to the Olympics, how many years were you playing ice hockey?
I started when I was 5 years old, playing street hockey and roller hockey out on the driveway with my older brother and his friends. That's how it all got started. Once I wanted to do everything he wanted to do. So once he got out there, I obviously followed. And then when he took it to the ice a couple of years later, I also wanted to do that. And I'm from Maryland, so it was it wasn't a super hotbed for hockey, especially for girls. So, and my parents didn't, grow up playing hockey or really sports. So it was really unfamiliar for them. But once they realized like that was really what I wanted to do, and that was I played every single sport, but that was always my number one. They were all in, and it was kind of the rest is history. But I played pretty much every sport until like 9th grade, where I had to decide. But yeah, probably like 25 years I've been playing hockey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was it about ice hockey that you just loved?
I just loved how fast it was. It was super fast, super physical, dynamic. Like you couldn't play ice hockey if you didn't know how to skate, and I loved to skate. And yeah, it was just like the shifts, like you're on and off. You don't really have to wait your turn as much. When I was younger, I always had a hard time, waiting my turn in baseball and, sitting out for a long period of time. So I just loved how fast it was.
It's definitely the fastest game I have ever seen. And I've watched a lot of sports, but that is definitely the fastest game I've seen. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, hockey players were not notoriously great runners. So it's always, obviously seeing people skate for the first time is, especially when you get older, it gets harder to learn how to skate. But if you see a group of hockey players running, like it's comical, just, compared to other, professional athletes like, football, baseball, basketball. We are not natural runners.
Oh, wow. I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I think it's just more so like we're used to skating, and it's kind of a completely different dynamic in motion. So a lot of our off ice training is whether it's biking or slide boarding, which simulates skating. It's not a lot of impact because we're really prone to injury playing hockey. So we try to reduce that with our off ice training.
Wow. All right. So you've been playing, you tried out all of these sports, and you tried the baseball, and, the tutu from ballet didn't quite work out. And, you tried all these other things. You fell in love with ice hockey, and you actually signed on to play in college, right?
Yeah. So I was fortunate that I got to play throughout high school for a AAA club girls team I was able to go to my public high school near my house and play for this team, which we traveled every single weekend. But we always played the best team, which was huge for me and for the exposure. And that's how the recruiting process got started. A lot of people go to prep schools or boarding school because they really have to, because there aren't many opportunities. But I was fortunate. I had the teams called the Washington Pride. I played on their U19 team all 4 years, which really set me up for success, making that first U18 national team, and then led me to Boston College.
So you played at Boston College. And when did you realize you are now at a different level?
I would say the first time that I was really exposed to the opportunity that, the Olympics was possible was when I first made the U18 national team, which is obviously it's under 18. I was probably 15, but you go to the same training camp as the older players, as the Olympians. So you're exposed to all of those Olympians. And it was an incredible experience as a 15-year-old to be able to see how they train, how they play. And we, had some practices with them. And that's when
the Olympians.
Yeah. Just like probably to get the younger kids to see what it was like. And that was my first glimpse of, oh, wow, if I really put all my eggs in this basket and really go for it, it is a possibility.
Wow. So this sounds very similar to Apollo Ono's story when he went to Lake Placid. Yeah.
Yeah. We have those camps in Lake Placid, actually. So it's the same rink, like where those Olympics were several years ago. That's where we would go every August for those training camps.
Wow.
So yeah, and I first made the national team, the over 18, which is those people go to the Olympics my junior year of college. So that was my first taste of actually playing on the national team to see, you know, where I stood. And that was the first real taste of that.
So hold on. You're a full-time college student, right? So you're working, trying to get good grades, you're studying, and then you're on your college ice hockey team and the national hockey team?
Yeah.
Explain that.
Yeah. So how that works is we have our first camp of the year. Usually it was August. It was the August festival. So they invite everyone who makes that camp from U18, U22s, and then above is the national team. Have that, which is kind of a tryout for the next tournament, which for us was Four Nations for the national team, which is in November. And you have a pre-camp, a training camp for that. So you usually take a week to 2 weeks off of school, which they give you time to prepare for that. And a lot of professors are obviously super excited for you, super supportive, want you to do well. And I was so used to balancing school and hockey throughout high school that it was almost easier for me when I went to college because your classes are more spread out and I wasn't missing. In high school, I would miss almost every Thursday and Friday to travel, which, yeah, was super, super unconventional. But I became so deliberate with how I used my time and how I, got to my teachers ahead of time, used my classmates and friends to kind of lean on them for different resources. So I used that throughout my college career for hockey. So then they have like the winter camp is the next training camp, which leads to usually a series versus Canada or something like that. And that's the tryout for the World Championships, which is usually in April, which you miss another week or so. And that's
I can't
in between
even
the Olympics.
I can't wrap my head around how you would catch up. I mean, I know Janice is going back to school, and Janice, can you think of yourself missing Thursday, Friday in school, and how to make that up? I can't wrap my head around that.
No, and I'm personally terrified of the whole process. So, no, I think it's going to be hard, and I worry about it. So it's so impressive, but I think when you have a sports mentality, you're just so driven from the beginning. I'm going to need all your tips.
My biggest tip is get it done ahead of time. That was always my biggest thing, is how much can I get done before I leave or before what have you, because I don't want to be focusing on school and it's just more fresh in my mind when I just, am leaving. So that was always my biggest goal. Like my biggest fear was getting back from a trip Sunday night or something after I missed a couple days of school, like in high school, and had all of this stuff piling up. It was a really great feeling to just get it all done that week. So I didn't have to worry about that.
When I travel sometimes for work and I'm in these hotels, where they give you the free breakfast in the morning and they have that whole seating area in the lobby, there's a sports team that's staying in the hotel when they just converge on that. They essentially take over that whole breakfast place and they're sitting there studying for hours and hours and hours, and you could hear a pin drop. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I've had a lot of quiz, quick mock quizzes with teammates in those areas many, many times.
So I guess when you played in college and you were also playing on the national team, you were actually, your teammates on the national team were then your competitors when you played with your college team.
Yeah. Yep. They were.
What's that like?
Especially my senior year of college at Boston College, we went undefeated in our season and lost in the last game. We were 41-1, I believe. Yeah, we lost our very last game, which obviously was heartbreaking, especially being a senior. And we played the University of Minnesota, who's just always been a dominant team, has so many Olympians, national team players, but a lot of my really close friends and two players on that team that I played on a line with on the national team like that year. So the next day after we lost, we flew to, I think it was Seattle is where our training camp was being held, because we had our world championships a couple weeks later in British Columbia. So we literally the next day flew and trained with them. And I was playing on a line with those two players who just ended my, college career on not the highest note, but they are also my really good friends. So when we're playing against each other in colleges, you don't think about that. You want to win. We're so like such fierce competitors. That's all we think about. But, the
That's
next
what Zaza
day,
Pachulia said, the NBA player, when he was on the show. He said, on the court, they're not your friends.
yeah, even Canada, like a lot of the Canadian players played on the same teams as us in college. So you're really good friends with them, but they're our biggest rival, and you wouldn't even know it because once you're on the ice, it's just a whole different ball game. So yeah, it's definitely a really interesting dynamic. Similarly, when you're trying out for the Olympic team, and you're playing on the same line as people who you're also competing against. So you want,
Wow.
you want your line to do well. You want them to do well because it means you're doing well. But at the same time, you're all competing for pretty much the same spot, and there aren't that many of them. So for me, it's just, they're my friends. So that's kind of the most important thing to me. Like holding anything against them wouldn't help my performance at all. Even after they, ended my career, they were doing exactly what I was trying to do. We were trying to win the game. So that's my mentality, is just, that's what I value more. And then, using our relationships to build our performance when we're playing together to make that team.
Oh my God, what a healthy attitude. You can make a fortune going into any corporation and teaching them that, because I think they need to learn that concept.
It's really, I would say it really has helped me in my career today too, just because I work in like software sales now, which is obviously very similar, different, but similar dynamic, where you are competing against the people that you're working with, but you're all kind of working towards this collective goal. So I just more so like a relationships person, like, and I didn't used to be like that growing up. When I was younger, all I wanted to do was win, score goals. I never really cared about, my teammates unless they weren't doing well. And then I was like, mad at them when I was younger. And I learned so much, like throughout my college career and on Team USA, that has taught me so many lessons. And it is much healthier for me because it's just, much less stressful and more productive for everyone.
Nice. So talk to us about the trying out for the Olympics, because I know that did not come so easily.
Yeah, so the process for how that works, and I was invited to they call it the selection camp for the Olympics. So they choose the top 40 players in the country, bring them into training camp, 2 weeks of off-ice testing, off-ice training, on-ice testing, on-ice training, practices and games. And then after that, they tell you they pretty much cut it in half. And then that team is they're centralized, which means they live together in one place, like an NHL professional team, and train and play together every day for a year leading up to the Olympics. And then they end up cutting 2 to 3 players pretty much 2 weeks before the Olympics is usually how that goes.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, because for the purpose of, injuries, and also just, not like anyone's complacent, but they don't want it to be like, this is the team, and then kind of people let up even in the slightest. So that was,
It's grueling.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely, it really does test you. And I was first brought to the selection camp after my freshman year of college, for the 2014 Olympics. And
wow.
I was cut from that team like right away, which I was young. It was really just a learning experience for me. Obviously there's always that little hope that you will make the team, and it was disappointing to not.
How old were you in 2014?
I was probably 20. I think I was 20. Yeah. So 19 or 20. So definitely young, and had a lot to learn still, and just a lot to develop physically and mentally with the whole game. But that was a really great experience for me. And it kind of told me exactly what I needed to do for the next 4 years. So the next 4 years come along. I graduated from college and had been training and playing professionally and with the national team full time. I was on the last 3 world championship teams that we won. And I was invited to that selection camp, which was in Tampa, Florida. And it was a grueling couple weeks, and there were a lot of great players. And I was told at the end of that camp that I did not make it too. And so that was really like extremely, like much more devastating, just because that was kind of the end of the road for me. There's really not a sustainable professional league where you can just play and make a living yet. That's definitely coming. So it was more like I had to take a step back and figure out what I wanted to do next, because they don't really take, if they take alternates, they're taking college players who are currently playing. So I kind of took the summer off just to regroup, figure out what I wanted to do, and had this crazy opportunity come up where I think they had a couple injuries or something, and the director called me and said, we want you to just come train with us for a couple weeks because
It's your
there's
second
an injury.
chance.
Yeah, it was probably like 4 months later. I hadn't skated really at all. I was like working out, but not for hockey. And so I had like a day to decide, but I figured I can't say no to this opportunity because it'll probably never happen again. So
That's what like Devin says when he was trying out for the Olympics. He was military fit, not sports fit.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like it's a completely different, like I was probably more fit than I was like playing hockey, but not for hockey. Like hockey, you just have to have this different type of mass,
Workout.
like muscle. Yeah, like it's an explosive sport. But I was doing pretty much like indoor, I was just running. So I was just like would have been slower on the ice, which I definitely was at the beginning. So yeah, like I felt extremely unprepared, but I knew I couldn't say no. So the next day I flew down and kind of earned my way to an official like tryout. That wasn't even really a tryout. So it was like 2 or 3 weeks before the Olympics that I officially heard that I had made the team. So yeah, a lot of ups and downs throughout that process. I really learned just to enjoy each day and each moment, because it could really end at any moment. They could cut you or, send you home. I was sent home in like September, because it was only a 2-week period that they initially wanted me to go down there. So I knew I was going back. And before I left, they said, stay ready. We could call you next week. We could call you a week before the Olympics. We might not call you at all. So,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How do you live like that?
I know it's definitely a grueling process.
Wow.
I was just, thank goodness I had such great teammates, friends, family. Like they were incredible and made every second really worth it. But
so what do? You work, you don't work? How like you tell your boss you can leave at any time? How does this work exactly?
Well, at the time I was working like part-time for a production company like downtown in Boston, because I had an interest in that. I really had no idea what I wanted to do outside of hockey, but I was lucky that I had this opportunity to do that. And we were kind of just like working on this like fun sports documentary type thing. And when I got this opportunity to go play, they were obviously like, go, you have to go. And so we kept that relationship. But when I came back, I was involved, but I also signed with the Boston Pride, which was a professional team at the time, just to stay in shape and training. So yeah, it was just like, keeping the communication clear there, but they knew that was the priority once that started to occur.
Wow. So they knew, they were supportive. They knew you might get that life-altering phone call.
Yeah.
At any time. Wow.
Yeah.
And then, so it's like Devin, he met his teammates at the airport. Not so dissimilar. You've been training with them a little bit, but the whole collective was kind of new. And then you went off to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It was, I mean, the first, similar to Devin, I guess, like they brought in one other, a D, so I'm a forward, and they brought in one defenseman who she didn't get sent home after. Once they brought her in, she knew she was staying, but she was my roommate throughout this whole process. And I had never met her before, and super nice. I mean, we ended up becoming friends, obviously, but that was, I knew pretty much everyone on the team except her, and she was my roommate. So we did have that in common, where we were kind of coming in from the outside again. But yeah, then ultimately hearing you made the Olympic team is, you know, like a dream come true, obviously. And so going there and flying there with the team was, you know, the whole processing, all that, and like just the village, everything. It's like you want to soak up every single moment. It was just incredible. Like I couldn't believe that I was even really there, because a few months before I didn't think I would be.
Wow. And then not only were you there, you won gold.
Yeah, I know. That was like, once we were there, I was really just taking it like the whole journey, like one day at a time. I didn't want to think ahead, or, you know, just really control what you can control, because there's so many things, especially once you're there, that are out of your control that usually I would probably stress over. But at that point I was like, we're just going to enjoy this experience. We are prepared. Like we've done everything we can to this point, and we had so much trust in each other. I mean, I've known a lot of those players for over 10 years. So we were really close, that we knew, you know, that, like we always say it, that pressure is a privilege. So to use that moment to our advantage.
Oh, I like that. Pressure is a privilege. Oh, wow. I
think
got
Billie
chills.
Jean King said it first.
But that's okay. You're copying it.
Yeah, she's been a big inspiration for us. So it's we've taken a lot of tools out of her toolbox over the last few years.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, this is an incredible story. And Sam, maybe we can go to the panelists, because I know there's questions, and I know Debbie's sending them a mile a minute. Debbie, you're up. Go ahead. And Devin, we can't see you. We lost you. Oh, there he is. He's back.
My battery died. I'm back.
Devin looked like he was a USB port for a second.
Exactly.
Debbie, I loved your question there. You want to ask her?
Haley, do you do any sports now? That's my first question. I have two.
Do I pretty
pulled
much
out the tutu.
I exercise daily. Like I love to run, I love to bike, I do all of that. I still play hockey, like more so for fun, not competitively. And I do play tennis and golf, pretty socially, I would say. I'm not great at either. I loved playing tennis when I was younger, and I really didn't like playing golf when I was younger, but my dad and brother were always about it. And now that, again, I've kind of like slowed down my mentality to enjoy these things and enjoy these moments. I really enjoy playing golf. I wish I was a little better at it, but I'm working on it. So that's a spring, summer sport for me. But anytime I can, like, you know, fun, like basketball game with friends, like I'm all about it.
Do you miss the competition?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I miss it a lot. That's probably one of the things I miss most, is like competing, especially at a high level.
Oh, so what do you do?
I mean, for me, it's kind of a combination of, I try and work out every single day. So that's a way to, you know, get that energy out, as well as like in my work day to day. I like to just channel a lot of those things in what I do with my work now, which it's different, but a lot of the same characteristics can definitely translate.
I see why so many people love to hire these top athletes, because clearly you have incredible time management skills if you can be on two teams and go to school, and you have a very healthy competitive spirit. So it makes it crystal clear to me why so many employers like to bring in these athletes. Ding ding.
Yeah, and like the team element to it. Like I can tell, like, someone on my team at work, or just someone I work with, like the way they communicate and handle themselves in a team setting, I can tell now if they had played a sport or not. And sometimes I'm wrong, but more often than not, like a lot of those things do definitely stick out.
Devin, do you see that too?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you learn so much from sports, and, you know, working with other people you probably didn't like initially, but you find a way to respect them because of what they bring to the table, the talent, right? So Haley, I have a question. You know, so you're training with the team, you get cut, but I know this thing is still in your blood. You know, you get cut and you don't really see a clear path to the Olympics. talk to me about your mindset. There's a part of you that wants to get to quote unquote real life, but there's hockey over here and you're in no man's land. How do you
Oh
nav-
yeah. I spent a lot of time in that no man's land, and like, yeah, because you're that whole summer really, I pretty much for that summer, what I did is I walked dogs in Boston just because it was like something to do. I was outside moving, but it also gave me a lot of time to think like what am I doing? Where am I at? And I missed like that. I wasn't really ready to move on. I'm so thankful that I had that opportunity, because I probably would have tried to like just move on and kind of not forget about it, because hockey has always been a part of my life, but take that next step. And it probably would have been a little bit of a force, but getting that back and going back to the team was probably the best thing that's ever happened, because I wasn't at that point. When I was 23, 24 years old, like I wasn't ready to retire at that age. Like I still, if I could play full time now, I still would. So definitely then it was hard to think of my life without hockey in it. But I also resented the sport at the time, because, it had broken my heart, like in the national championship game and then now. So I was like, maybe I do just need to start fresh. But in the end of the day, I'm glad that I didn't.
Yeah. It's that no man's land is it's painful.
Yeah, it really is.
And you want to, I used to, this Bob said things not even real. Let me get on with real life. But, you're lying to yourself. And yeah, it's a challenge, but it works out eventually, I guess.
Debbie
Haley,
has an idea. She has an idea how you can play again.
yeah, is there going to be a professional women's hockey league anytime soon?
There are two. One is, it's called the PHF, which was the National Women's Hockey League, and they moved to now it's the Professional Hockey Federation. And there's also the PWHPA, which stands for the Professional Women's Players Association, or Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. And I played in that for the last 2 years. Like last year I played in it because it was really showcase based. So you played really on the weekends. And since COVID was still kind of happening, the practices were super inconsistent. So it really worked out well with my job. I was able to do that on the weekends. It was literally the best of both worlds. But now with the Olympic year was this year. So a lot of my friends weren't playing in that league. And the scheduling with my work was harder. So I didn't play this year, but they're taking some pretty big strides. So people can make a living playing, which I'm not sure if I would give up my job now to do that. But if there was a way to do both or anything, I'm still considering that option. So hopefully soon there will be a professional league where girls and women can aspire to just play hockey for a living full time and not need to have another job.
I'd buy tickets to see you. I'd come.
Thank you. Yeah, stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
You got to let us know.
I will.
Susie.
Hi, I was very interested when you're talking about one skill that translates to work and life as we talk about it in photography. I'm curious what you've learned about people. Who are the people that are going to succeed, or can you tell us a little bit about who has that extra drive, and what kind of mental training do you have to help you succeed and to be resilient? That's another thing we talk about.
Yeah, resilience is huge. I think I would say one huge quality that I think is really important is just the ability to communicate, communicate the transparency, being able to receive feedback as well as get it. It's not always easy hearing hard news, especially when it's true, but it's how do you use that to almost create an opportunity out of it, I think is what really is the most important to me. It's great when things are going well, everyone's happy, everyone's a great communicator, but when things aren't going well, it's how are you, leaning on those around you, coming together and making an opportunity out of that would be my biggest thing, which kind of ties into resiliency, which I think is the most important, because it's not one smooth ride. You know, most of us, you always get in some type of lull, whether it's sports, work, anything. And it's how do you get yourself out of that? And how are you okay, like being in it, you know, not like complacent, but like not feeling like the world is crumbling, which we always say it's like being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
That's right.
That's
Do
like
you
a
have any
huge thing.
special affirmations that you tell yourself or self-talk that helps you get through the tough times?
Honestly, just keep going. Like sometimes I even say that it's just like, just keep going, like one step at a time, one day at a time. Like it's not, if you just move, like take some strides, even if they're like the smallest strides forward, like those add up, and you'll eventually like get yourself out of it, whatever it is. That's the biggest thing for me, is like just continue, like don't, feel like sorry for yourself, woe is me. Like obviously that can be pretty debilitating, but just keep moving forward. It's okay if you take a step back, as long as you learn from it.
On the issue of learning to take hard news as well, one of the things I say is that you have a choice over where you place the importance. Is it your ego or getting better? Is it ego or success? And people who crumble when they get harsh criticisms, let's say, because your ego is more important than succeeding.
Exactly.
So
I want to hear that hard news,
Yeah.
like tell me what I need to get better at, and then that's how you eventually exceed your own expectations, and then that's really what matters most. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Devin.
That's a sign of a high achiever. They crave the feedback because they know, excuse me, any minor adjustment could make them go faster, stronger, higher, whatever they need to do. It makes them actually better. So they actually crave it. The problem is we don't always know how to give it, but that's for another episode. Bruce looks like he's dying to ask a question.
Bruce has some hands up.
Yes.
Really? How'd you guess? What was the clue that I had a question?
It's a smile that tells me.
So one question I had, Haley, there's this image that, people start off sports and they do nothing but that, like from very young. And, like you have parents kind of pushing their kids and they say, don't do anything else, just focus on the sport. But, listening to you, you played other sports. I'm hearing you've done all these different things. And, walking dogs, playing other sports, studying in college, all these things like that. It seems like you had like this varied background, with doing different things. And this is something that's come up in one of the projects that I'm involved in, sort of the over focus on a single sport as opposed to balance. And that it seems like a lot of the superstars like yourself, the people who really like reached the pinnacle, actually had very balanced sporting careers. Am I correct in saying that? And that maybe you could talk about how that's really helped you, having that balance across different things.
Absolutely. I think that is a great question and point, because I always say this whenever I'm coaching a camp or a clinic or anything with kids, and parents too, is when they're like, well, what's the secret like recipe? Which first of all, there is none, but I always said, like, try everything, play every sport. My parents didn't come from a sports background, but even when I was playing sports, my mom put me like in all these different activities, anything. Like I was friends with artists, ballerinas, like that I'm still like really good friends with. And I'm so thankful for those relationships that I was able to see all of these different perspectives and try all these new things. Like I learned how to sail, like I, tried to play instruments. I was always really bad at them, but I still love music, because I had just a background in pretty much getting my hands in everything possible, which I think is so important. And even in a physical standpoint too, like training, like some of the top trainers I know, their biggest thing is do not do sports specific training. Like obviously if you have an explosive sport, you want to focus on sprinting, but it's about just like moving your body in different ways. Like that's really how you're going to progress overall, is like, how do you really get to know like your own body? And I think it spans across everything. And like parents, a lot of times, like when their kids are so young and the kid is really good at hockey or whatever sport, and the parents are just so, on top of them, and they end up getting burnt out, or they don't like the sport because, they resent the whole experience. So I think it's so crucial to try everything and do as much as you can with the opportunities given, because that's really what will make you a more complete person and just teach you a lot of different lessons and give you a ton of different perspectives.
Haley, you're bringing up something so important with all the people who I interviewed, and it doesn't matter if they were Olympians or scientists or NBA stars or astronauts. They always had this feeling that they feared not trying more than they feared failing. And they weren't worried about being the only one or being embarrassed or what will people say or how will people look at me. They had to try.
Yeah.
That was first and foremost. They had to try. And I'm hearing this in you, and I'm seeing this in Neon Lights, because it sounds like that's exactly what you did. You tried all of these things. You had to.
Yeah, because looking back on so many of these experiences, I remember when because I was really shy growing up, like super, super shy. And so I was scared to go to a camp where I didn't know anyone, or to try anything that I never tried before. But every time I did it, like as a kid, I was so happy after. Like my mom would say it time and time again. She said, you always come home, like when I'm, complaining about trying something, not wanting to go. She said, you always come home and you're so happy that you tried it. And like, even to this day, I remember that, like, because you don't want to regret if you never try it, like you never even know. So that's the first step, is just trying it.
Wow. Haley, I would hire you any day. You have all the qualities that people are looking for. Haley Skarupa, thank you so, so much for joining us on the Mentor Project's Optimizing Your Success. Thank you so much to Sam Stone behind the scenes, who's making us look and sound great. We are here usually every single Monday night at 8 p.m. And the following week, you will hear the audio of the show turn into a podcast. So please, if you listen, leave us a rating and review. Thank you to Debbie, Janice, Susie, Bruce, and Devin for joining us. We are going to have approximately 1 month pause before we come back with some incredible, incredible guests. So please join us then. Haley and the High Achieving Crew, thank you so much. And thank you to the Mentor Project, as always, for hosting the Optimizing Your Success show. I'm Dr. Ruth Gautian. Thanks, everyone. Bye.